I was that kid that grew up and didn't have, much stories that I could really relate to on my life, my upbringing, showing, diversity and a bit of strengths in my culture and in my community and stuff like that.
You've also mentored and worked with those kids as well. So 15 years in education in Halls Creek and now beyond. And I worked in Halls Creek for 6 years. And then Broome and then One Point. So I've been around the traps and the outback as well. So we've worked with those kids.
Yeah, and it's also like mirrors into their lives. It also validates their experience, I'd say.
So they can see themselves in books finally.
Yeah.
But it's also a window for people who are reading all over Australia, for the guests here tonight and who are watching on replay, that you can see a little snippet into the lives of outback kids to show the diversity of First Nations people and the lived experience that is so different no matter where we're joining from across Australia as well.
Yeah, and it's also, and it's about it's a door, but it's also a great education side of things. For people, Hakea just touched on, from kids from cities and that, and it's really important because, over here, talking to a kid today, they were like, Carl, have you traveled the world? And I was like, I haven't seen everything in Australia yet. And I'm like, have you seen everything? Have you been to the Kimberleys? I questioned them, and they looked at me and said, I don't even know where the Kimberleys are.
And so understanding it through books is one way that we can open people's eyes and hearts and create that empathy and understanding through experiencing it with our characters, and then perhaps sparking that curiosity that next they want to go and visit, or they want to connect with, or they want to support businesses up there, or whatever it is. It's sparking that empathy, curiosity, and understanding.
Yeah, with one of our books, My Deadly Boots, it shows the doubts, the people who try, put kids down in the remote communities. This deadly book right here, lovely illustrations by Samantha Campbell. And you go.
So this book here is a great example of how we think about First Nations protagonists in our book. Here's a character that was feeling doubted and downed and was proud of their shoes and thought, oh, I need fashion, I need the latest trend or whatever to feel good in myself. And through the book, they realize.
Yeah, it shows their strengths on country and their culture and, family and connection to language, and all of that shows the real strengths.
And I think one of the great things about what we've been trying to write is it's a door for kids as well. So it's a chance for First Nations readers to see, hey, this is the pathway this kid took. People were putting them down in My Deadly Boots, but this is how they overcame that, or this is who they connected with to give them advice. And we kind of do that in our other books as well. This is the pathway. You might face this challenge, and then, sorry, I speak with my hands. And then this is then what you might do. And I think with some of our other books, like Dirren, which we'll talk about later, also gives those opportunities for young people to see direction.
And it also shows with the new book series, which comes out in September, Kimberley Kicker, Jai Goes for Gold, it shows, his journey on, from call him a little one-horse town because it's that small, but, his strengths on, going away to boarding and his persistence and
his adventures that he has across country too, and how the adventures he has gives him the strength that then makes him a successful AFL player.
Like running from the dogs in the community, you learn to really run fast in them, and, it really shows the power and the strength of him on his journey.
And I think these books show both the challenges and vulnerability of people who are in the outback or First Nations people, but it also shows this strength, this intergenerational strength, these ways that country and community build you and strengthen you as well. And I think for people who are watching or reading these, when you're not working perhaps with First Nations kids in the outback, again, it's that window, it's that opportunity for you to discuss strength, to discuss culture, community, but also diversity of First Nations people. Here is one representation, one lived experience. And now we can read Jared Thomas and we can explore that, or here we can read Anita Heiss and we can explore her work and show this amazing diversity that exists in Australia.
And that comes back, once you read and, you want to become allies, hopefully, if it's okay to say that. And, you can't care or be passionate about what you don't know about, and that's why on the flip side, it's also a great thing for it to be on a broader perspective, in cities, and people learn about it, and, learn a bit of language. There's glossaries there and stuff like that.
And I think that ties into, if an issue does come up, like the referendum, or we had closing remote communities, it's something that feels so far and distant from people who live in the cities or are working in primary schools all across Australia. But once you have that understanding, that hook, that love, that passion, that learning that you get perhaps through books, documentaries, connecting with First Nations people, then that's where we care. Then that's where we develop that passion and work together.
As a ESL person myself, like English as my second language, it's designed to hook rural and remote kids ideally.
We've seen the harsh reality that happens in rural and remote schools often. So if you look at the data about literacy achievement and attainment in remote outback schools, the gap is pretty stark, and we wanted to work on improving that. So we're thinking of the kids that we had that were sometimes illiterate, sometimes at standard, with these rich stories and these dual languages. They had so many strengths, but this was a big area for improvement. So
yeah, and a couple of the key areas about it is, is high interest, because it engages them, low literacy and or easy accessible text.
Yeah, so when we were writing Black Cockatoo, we were thinking of that.
Short but deep, it depends how deep you want to deep dive into the book, and that's logistically with all of our books, sort of.
And we provided jumping off points. So we were thinking for the year 9 students that I was teaching, and Carl would often come in, he was across the whole school, but for a lot of my kids, this would have been a challenge. And reading a chapter book was something that many of them hadn't achieved yet. And so having a book that's short with lots of jumping off points, so we could extend the kids that need extending by jumping off into looking at housing, or looking at a different culture, or looking at something within this book. But we were also able to achieve success with our young readers that way too.
Yeah, and one of the other key things with our book is we always write detailed educational packs, which include videos and all that sort of stuff.
And we love that PETAA has had the opportunity to write and support them too. So we've got these layers of depth that people can access when they look at our books.
And that also come back, we know teachers are busy, it's some days you've got multiple things going on, and it's just like, oh, I'll just have this pack, and it makes teachers' lives a bit better, a bit easier, hopefully, because being a teacher is a pretty full-on thing when you're trying to change kids' lives.
As people know, at 3:30 or whenever you're watching this.
Yeah, still working now.
So I think it's also showing young people that their stories matter.
Yeah.
And that Outback kids, your stories matter too. So when we go and do talks with schools, or when we connect with Outback kids around this, one of the girls in Halls Creek said, "Hey, you wrote that book about me. I literally saved a bird the other week." And we're like, "Yes, it's you." And then another one, the Hayley Rivers.
Yeah, Hayley Rivers, my niece, and that we got her to
narrate the book.
Yeah, narrate the book, and once she finished doing it, she was like, "Hey, Harold, that's me. When I went to school and I went to boarding school, it reminds me of so much, of her journey. Now she's in Sydney and, doing acting and seeing everywhere, but she was like, that was me when I was growing up.
So when we write these things to improve literacy, we're thinking access, high interest, mirrors, so that young people feel seen. So books are for them. They're no longer just princesses or fairies or whatever. They're written for me and about me and hook me in. And it's also that opportunity to go, hey, if he can do it, or she can do it, if they can do it, if a foster kid and a kid from the outback can write these stories, maybe I can too. And maybe, just maybe, my stories matter. We didn't think our stories matter. Their stories can matter too.